If Sean comes in late, he comes in late. So it is 7:03 PM. I'm going to call the meeting of the Town Manager Screening Committee to order, September 14th, 2023. First order of business, we're going to go into roll call. Myself as chair is here. Michael Kyra, present. Michael Shampoo, present. John Doherty.
Here.
Present. John Eaton.
Present.
Sean Hennigan, absent. Ray Lepore.
Yep.
Brian Perry already told me he would be absent, and then Paul Ruggiero. Okay, so that's, we are missing Mr. Perry, who's excused or sent an email last, who would be here, and Mr. Hennigan is not here. So we're going to start, or we're going to move on to the Pledge of Allegiance. If you please rise. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The minutes from the August 29th meeting, I had sent them out earlier on receipt, and I have reviewed them. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes? Any questions, concerns, comments, or otherwise?
Motion to accept?
Motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Yes.
Motion made in second. All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Voted unanimously. First appointment, organization of the committee. We picked a chair last week. We did not pick a vice chair, and we have to pick a vice chair. So that is the first order of business.
If no one wants it, I'll take it.
Do- I just in case someone's not here, if I can't make it for any reason.
No. If no one wants it, I'll take it.
I would nominate John.
Nomination for John. Do I have a second? Motion made in second. All those in favor of John Doherty serving as vice chair, say aye. Opposed?
Thank you, John.
Thanks, John.
No problem.
I'm not missing any meetings because that means I have to put kids to bed, so that's not happening.
Number 4, right?
Yeah, that's coming soon, too. All right, next order of business, discussion regarding the scope of work of an RFP, RFQ relative to the procurement of a consultant, consultation services to work with the Town Manager Screening Committee. So, for those of you who did not know or who have not known yet, the selectmen on Monday voted to move forward with the RFP, RFQ process at our request for the procurement of a consultant to work with this committee, as well as with the select board in the screening and ultimate decision-making on the town manager, the permanent town manager. That is to say, it's an important distinction. So the charge from the board, or the request from the board at the meeting on Monday, was that we meet at this meeting this evening and kind of give a scope of work or a scope as to what we want that RFP, RFQ to look like, so we can tailor what we're going to get back in response from these companies. So obviously, I told them we would, and we'd have this meeting tonight, and we'd hopefully spin something back for them sooner rather than later. At the beginning of the meeting, I did pass around, if you go on to the various towns' registers for the open bids, so I went through Westford, Sudbury, Berlin had one too. I only provided one for the committee because it was Westford, it was recent, and you kind of catch the drift. They all look the same. So they're probably all, I would be shocked if KP Law isn't both of their town councils. So if you skip on the town of Westford one, just to give you a little flavor of what this scope of work relative to RFP, RFQ for these consultants looks like, it's on page 2, and it spills a little bit into page 3. So that's just I only provided that just for to show this committee what the RFP may or will likely look like for these consultant services. And with that, I will kind of open it up to the committee to decide, where we want to take this discussion.
Did the select board indicate that they were going to be the hiring authority?
Yes. And I thought one thing it would be worth mentioning is one of the or a very large or an important thing I pulled out of that select board meeting, because town council was there, and what Attorney Fair said, which kind of perked got my attention, is he mentioned something that I really hadn't thought about. And he mentioned specifically the fact that when you use the services of a consultant, and Mike and John, you were there too, so if you can correct me if I'm speaking out of turn here, if I'm not remembering this correctly, if you use these consultant for their services, and Mike, you've probably done this before too, it assists in your applicant pool because they're able to go out to these folks, and instead of anyone having delivered applications to us, thus immediately becoming public information, they're allowed to take those applications in as an initial screen to see if it meets the selectmen's criteria and our criteria, and it allow for more applications to come in for those who otherwise would be hesitant that their name, if they have a job in another municipality, that their name would immediately be thrust or subject to open.
Rob, when the applications come in, will we go into executive session?
Yes, I
Okay.
believe we do, right? I don't know the answer to that question, but I believe we do.
So,
Okay.
until you reach the final stage.
Correct.
Yeah.
So and that's with the
So
select.
their names
we'll-
won't be out there.
Correct.
Yeah.
But I think, and again, I'll get some clarity from town council too, but he seemed to intimate that in all of these RFPs that I also saw, it talks a lot about, let me just see it, let me see. Networking, other search activities to generate a pool of highly qualified prospective candidates who meet the select board's selection criteria. So stuff like that. I think that's what he was intimating at. These consultants are able to have these discussions with folks they know in this arena, and see if Wilmington might be a place that they would otherwise like to do, rather than a letter or a job posting going out. So.
I haven't read through this, obviously, but as I'm kind of perusing, the first page seems like it delineates a schedule, a timeline, which, irrespective of where we are in our timelines, looking at the sequence of steps and the gap between each one of those steps, I think that we might be able to sort of mimic that, but plug it into our timeline, our schedule currently. Looking at the scope of work, just real quickly, first couple of paragraphs, and I like this is real quick. But the third paragraph that says the scope of work will include, but not be limited to. My first knee-jerk reaction is to maybe strike the word will and replace it with may. And the reason I say that is, and I kind of indicated on Monday night at the select board meeting that I think to their concern, that we turn the entire process over to a executive search consultant, then frankly, what is it we're doing? I think if we can avail ourselves, we talked about their services potentially being sort of a la carte. And so I think as we evolve in this conversation, if we avail ourselves of the lightest possible workload from them, in other words, not take advantage of the full gamut of all of their services, but take advantage of certain aspects of it that are the minutia, are the things during the day that we collectively can't take care of, A, because we're a body that has to meet in open session, and B, because we all have day jobs and other things, but these folks can, because they're working full time at this, so they can take care of some of the getting the advertisements out, doing the preliminary screening, working the networks, having the communication with existing assistant town manager or town managers throughout the Commonwealth or even throughout the region in other states. That's the expertise that I'm looking for us to take advantage of. Once we kind of tap into those resources, I'm not sure how much of all the rest of the things that they offer we will need. So I don't know if there's a schedule of services that they can provide us that says, here's the full suite, here's the abbreviated list of services, or here's a line item a list of line item services, take advantage of the ones you want. That's why I say may include.
Do we know what the cost to our services?
I don't. I actually inquired about on different municipalities' costs, and I have not heard back. But again, what I saw, the contracts that were published online that I did find were Wenham in 2020, and then Watertown in 2021. Wenham was $9,900, and that contract's online. And then Watertown, which I would consider to be a substantially bigger, having a $190 million budget, was 14,000. That's what they paid, 14,000.
So right nearly the
The-
wheelhouse for what was discussed.
Yeah, yeah. When our discussion at the last meeting of what we projected it to be is probably right in the money.
The other thing too is, as this is an unexpected cost, it would come under the Finance Committee's budget, and we could finance that, which wouldn't be a problem. Okay, so,
Yeah, I forget the exact line item that Jeff referenced at the selectmen's meeting on Monday, but
yeah,
he
that's
had-
professional services, yeah.
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 Yep.
But the other thing too is, they use that for a lot of other things in town too. So if we come up short, I'm sure the Finance Committee would approve a budget.
I don't see a problem with any of these items that are listed in the scope of work. I don't wanna split hairs, but I don't have a problem with will include. I don't see anything in there that we wouldn't want a consultant to do. If we're gonna hire a consultant, that's what I think we would want them to do.
Yeah, and Mike.
I think we should be specific.
Yeah, and I gotta tell you, when I was looking at this, and then I looked at Sudbury and I looked at Berlin, the scope of work that each of these towns put out there that they were looking for, I was if you review these point by point, I was thinking to myself, I know that we are going to be very involved, especially as a screening committee, and this even Westford contemplates a screening committee. Again, I would agree with, I think that these are things that we would want to do, but it's more along the lines of when they're doing these things, I would like to be involved in formulating, who gets before us. And I know that one of the approaches is they tier them out, so they'll tier applicants A, B, C, and D, or 1, 2, and 3. And then in some communities, I've heard that the screening committee never even saw. They didn't even know who it was, and then they found out afterwards, and that was interesting.
Rob, did you look at Bedford?
Yeah, so I actually asked Bedford for what Bedford paid for their
Yeah.
consultant. I'm waiting to hear back on that. So
Rob, I think that given what you're suggesting, is where it doesn't say select board, or where it doesn't say screening committee, we could add the words screening committee. So when it says, to ensure that we're a part of that process, and I think that's probably what the selectmen wanted anyways. And the only thing that I would suggest we do is add screening committee where it's not listed in the 3 or 4 of those bullets. But also eliminate the word town's human resources department. I think that could become a conflict if there is a
Yeah,
candidate
you're right.
from there. So that, I think this is a pretty good document. Most of it after the first couple of lines of boilerplate, with all of the attachments that they need to provide. But I think you picked out a good one, and we should just consider adding screening committee and eliminating human resources department.
That's just, I think, only in one, right? The third from the
Yeah, I
bottom.
think that's the only one I saw it in the bullet number 1, 2, 3,
Yeah.
4, 5.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Kara, you think you're suggesting under the second bullet, consultant will work with select board and screening committee? You don't think it should be screening committee instead of select board?
Well, We could put and/or, I suppose, and let the selectmen decide whether or not they wanna be involved with that. I mean, they're the appointing authority, so they should, I guess, at least have that opportunity.
Yeah, I think when the select board really be involved in the skills, attributes, and expectations for the town manager. I mean, they're hiring the town manager, so it's really probably a lot of the, that criteria should come from them.
And this document is to select a consultant. You know, I know it goes beyond that in terms of its description, but it's to select a consultant, and the selectmen are, apparently the selectmen are the ones that are gonna do that.
One thing that's not on Westford, that I don't think it was on anyways, but Sudbury's, had it's again, very similar. So they had a point, it says consultant shall assist the select board, senior staff, and designated screening committee in soliciting community input and feedback regarding the traits and management style desired in a new town manager. This item shall include assistance in developing process for soliciting opinions, creating vehicles for eliciting stakeholder feedback, and compiling results and publishing conclusions. Consultant will present a written report to the select board with findings and recommendations from stakeholder interviews and other information gathering efforts.
I think that, I like that. I like the sound of that. Kind of see that as providing multiple benefits to one. I feel like for a select board member, what a great opportunity to get the temperature of the community. And if they need to recalibrate their priorities to match that, that they have perfect cover to do that through this process. It's a more objective exercise than what I did, just calling department heads, and they could cast a broader net, and they would know how to effectively elicit good feedback, not just here's a doodle poll and like, what do you want, but actually generating something that the community, not just residents, but town employees can speak to, that might help guide our or the select board's decision-making process.
I mean, yeah, I like that as well. I think it also will bring some different viewpoints into the.
Was it you, Mr. Doherty, that said at our last meeting that you thought it would be a good idea for us to somehow engage the community to do a poll?
Yes.
Or
Yep.
I think that might, what you
Yeah.
read.
And I think that would help.
Scratches that itch.
That would
right?
definitely help.
Yeah, I assume what they're alluding to in this Sudbury document when they talk about select board, senior staff, designated screening committees, talking about probably like IT department, stuff like that, working with them and to make sure we publish it, get it out there, bring it in and compile it, and then report it back to both this committee and the select board as well.
The other thing is, when the select board sends out the RFP, okay, there's a second step as to what we want to see in a new town manager, whether it be 5 years' experience, 10 years' experience as an assistant or a town manager or whatever, and then go from there. You know,
Well, but that's what the consultant
Would
will
do.
work with us
Yeah.
in terms of
Yeah.
developing.
yeah, but we have to give the consultant a minimum of what we want.
Right, once selected.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mentioned this at the meeting on Monday, and I put it up for the committee to consider as point 6. We can probably just, if it's okay with the committee, we can bring that discussion into this, we bring point 6 into this discussion, but a target date for the selection of a town manager. I think that's important, that we not only for our own housekeeping, keep us on track, but it's also very important for optics, the trust in the process in the community that we are able to formulate that date. I just don't think that date is going to be, I don't like the word serious, but we're not gonna know how long it's gonna take until we get the consultant in.
Yeah.
So, although I'd love to pick a date, I just don't know how feasible it is until we go through the consultant process.
We happen to know how accurate the timeline in here was?
I can check, but I mean, I assume they didn't repost. They didn't repost their, or none of the municipalities I saw reposted the RFP or posted like an edited RFP. So the dates didn't change.
So would you suggest then, looking at the first page, that we stop after contract award is anticipated at the select board, whatever date that is?
Where are you, Mike?
Well, on the first page, based upon what you said,
Yep.
I would think we would stop at the fourth to the
Yes.
last line, yeah. And then, I think when you meet with the consultants, we can really ask them what they believe a legitimate timeline
Yeah.
would be, because they have the experience in terms of, knowing how quickly things can move.
We can add, we can add that to our scope of work. That can be part of our scope
Sure.
of work. Help the town formulate a realistic and attainable timeline for the selection of a town manager.
Yep.
Just to play devil's advocate, is there merit to the idea of having a loosely stated goal, or am I just throwing darts at the wall? In other words, if I don't want to see this process get kicked down the, we couldn't have a meeting, we didn't have a quorum, blah, 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 and we find ourselves in May without a town manager. I guess I'm trying to hold us at our feet and the consultants' feet to the fire here and say, is it prudent for us to kind of draw a wiggly line in the sand that says, the first Q1 '24? Maybe it's not necessary.
Actually, Mike, you've got a good point. Because when town meeting comes up, we need a town manager. Okay? Don't forget, Jeff is leaving at the end of October. That starts the budget season. Okay? And that's going to impact the next fiscal year. So we need someone in there.
We'd love the next town manager to be in place with as much
Well
notice.
before then.
As much notice as possible.
Yes.
Before town meeting.
Yes.
They're not gonna be part of the budget
No.
establishment process,
They-
but get to know the budget.
They
well.
wouldn't be, because it starts in
Right.
early November, to get the capital improvements and then into the actual budget itself. Because it's presented at the end of January.
Yeah, so I mean, Westford put those dates in there. Sudbury did not. Sudbury stopped right after it says this is when we're going to choose our. I'm not like gutturally opposed to it, Mike, but I mean, we can set a date, but we're setting a date and saying, but we're going to also, I think we should still put in that in the RFP, RFQ, we want like a timeline.
I think everything is all valuable here. And
Yeah.
I'm not as enthusiastically in favor of my point. I just wanted to put it on the table
Yeah.
for discussion. I think that discussion should be one of the first bullet points we have with any prospective consultant, to let them know, listen, this is our budget season, this is our town management season, this is when town meeting is. Ideally, we'd like to have someone in place by X date.
Yeah.
We can have that conversation with them, and if they say, can't do it, well, then we have to adjust our expectations. But maybe it's unrealistic to put something down here until we've had these conversations. So I agree.
Optimistically speaking, if we're able to tackle this conversation and have something delivered to the select board for their next meeting, which is at the end of this month,
25th.
we can expect at some point in early to mid-October, an RFP would go out, which is a year and 2 months later than Westford's went. If we're just following the schedule that they have, then the town manager job offer will be extended in late February, early March of '24. That doesn't mean that the offer is accepted and the next day the person shows up and they have to put in notice, presumably. They meet but at least the process for selecting someone would be complete. It may be that through interviews, these firms are saying your timeline is a little unrealistic. I think we've been given a template here, and thank you, Rob, because it's clear you've done an awful lot of diligence here. In the absence of any knowledge that I have that would contradict this, why don't we just take this and just adjust it for the time that we have? I understand everyone doesn't want to say we're going to have a new town manager selected by March 1st, because if March 2nd comes and we don't have one, then we all have egg on our face. But at the same time, this seems to be about how long this process takes.
Shouldn't we concentrate on the initial dates? You indicated the selectmen are meeting on the 25th, so you want to have this to them by then.
Yes.
Why don't we come up with some suggested dates? Where Westford said August 16th. What date do we want to ask? How long will it take the selectmen to look at this and approve it and then send it out? So
Let's check out this, we're going to do it this way, let's go to town calendar.
and then we can use the same timelines.
Yeah.
Yeah, just piggyback the timeline. So if we say by October 12th, then we're talking about November 12th, and then November 27th.
So if they get, if we're able to, I think it should be pretty easy. Again, just looking at this, it was a form document. I think we're all in agreement that the scope of work is something we would want to put out there, and let them present it back to us to see what we would do with that. So if we are able to formulate an RFP by next Friday, or ask that an RFP be put forth, and we can say, hey, we looked at, I can kind of turn this into an editable document, put our proposed red lines or suggested edits in there, and say, hey, here you go on the 25th. Let them discuss it, see if they have any edits or changes, and then by the latest, we would suggest the latest that we put this out would be October 10th. So if it issues, because if they have to sign it, right?
Well, is it unrealistic to ask them, if you get a document in front of them soon,
25th.
even before, so their meeting is the 25th, let them get it as early as next week as possible. If copies can get sent out or whatever, electronically or otherwise, so that they individually can digest it and review it and have ample time, so that they're not seeing it the first time on their Monday night meeting, that they have more than a weekend to review and digest it. Is it too much to ask them to, if it's reasonable, render a decision on that evening of the 25th, so that we could go into action that week? Because if we give it to them on the 25th and say, okay, come back to us in 2 weeks, that's another 2 weeks we've lost.
Yeah.
That's what I think. What I was angling at is I would like for that to happen, but if it didn't happen, worst case, we're pushing off into October. Worst case, it would be the second week in October. But I would like to see them get presented with that again. I think the mechanism in this would be to Mr. Kyra's point, we come up with some dates that we think work, and we plug it in, and we make some requisite edits to some of this language and some of the stuff we want to add in, such as the talk about soliciting community involvement, and we put it back to the selectmen. I assume that they're going to kick it off to KP. KP is going to take it. They're going to digest it. I would be shocked if this wasn't their document. They take it in. They prepare it. It goes out through the manager's office to the selectmen for review next week. We can aim to get it out early next week. It's not. We're not. With this in hand, we're definitely not reinventing the wheel.
Yeah.
And if the selectmen have questions too, it's pretty easily ration to say, where'd you come up with this? And say, well, I think when I was thinking about what I would want the scope to be, it wasn't probably as coherent as this, but obviously everyone else is kind of
Yeah.
thinking the same thing, and people have been working off this type of stuff because it's likely what works. So let's just kind of rattle off like that. So if we say an RFP, RFQ zealously gets out and is voted on, 9/25, or at worst 10. Let's do a best case, worst case. Best 9/25, worst case 10. Was it 10/10? 10/10. No,
It's a holiday, so
10
we'll go to the Tuesday.
Oh, you're right.
You're talking about when the selectmen would
Vote to.
approve this.
Yes.
But we need to determine when will the proposal be available.
Well, that's what I was just saying. If I could kind of turn this around and take make the Westfords, right? Just open it up, make an editable document, kind of redline some changes, give it back to town council to turn it into an actual legal document. I mean, I could do that in a couple days. It's not gonna happen tomorrow. Probably could work on it, if I make it to my office over the weekend or Monday.
So, I guess my question though, Rob, was if the selectmen vote on this on September 25th at their meeting and they approve this, what is the date that we would expect that they would say that this RFP would be available?
Oh, yeah, so that was
Right,
kind of,
right?
No,
So-
that's that date, but I'm saying when, after September 25th, we're not saying that the RFP will be available on September 25th. It's gonna take some time. You just mentioned town council. Will the selectmen want town council to review this document? I suspect that they would. We could ask Beverly, how long that process might take in terms of putting it on the website. Is that gonna take one day or 1 week or?
Once it's finalized and ready to go, it can go right up. Yeah, it's very easy.
Could we?
Jump ahead on that process and send the finished document to town council to look at before we send the document to the Board of Selectmen? I don't know if that's.
As long as that's not presumptuous, I mean, they're the ones that.
It could be at the same time.
I was gonna say, yeah, at the same time.
well, my thought was, we take it and we take this document that again is definitely a word bank document, and through my office to through this committee, I can write an email to the select board, have the town manager, Mr. Hull, on it, and put it right through to the select board, the chair of the select board, and say, we met at this meeting, we worked off other RFQs that other municipalities have used. They look like they're a generally accepted version of what is. Please see attached with some requested edits, and also here are the dates we would request. And we ask that, town council take this and review it for presentation to the select. And then but they'll have it as well, so they'll be able to, it'll be kind of floating out there.
I'm just trying to think of how we can give the select board the tools that they need, potentially, to review and vote and approve the document on the 25th. If it's not possible, it's not possible.
If you do it in advance and they each get it, they should be able to review it and make a decision on the 25th.
You could have town council at the meeting to say,
Yeah.
this is my analysis of it. So whatever questions the board has, yes, it's in an open meeting, so it's not subject to attorney-client privilege, but at the same time, this is more of a hiring process, not an HR issue that you're really concerned about who's listening.
I think you give them as much of a final document as possible. That you present it as the screening, this is what the screening committee recommends. If they're not able to agree on the 25th, okay. So we're 2 weeks more down the, down. I mean, I don't think it's gonna make or break this
To your point, if we can get them something where they could just say yes to, perfect. And we've done the best that we can to effectively expedite this process.
Yeah, I mean, they're Westford. They wrote this. They also wrote.
Okay.
They also wrote Sudbury. Yep, they've been Sudbury's town council.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're Westford's town council.
We're gonna love our work then.
Yeah, so I assume they're gonna. I mean, I assume they're gonna get this and they're gonna.
Go for it.
Yeah. They're gonna be ticked off that they can't build their own thing.
Change the font to mess
They'll
with.
find a way.
Yeah.
Change the font.
I'll make it Comic Sans yellow. But I think that kind of makes it easier for them to say they met, they did some, they had research, they found what was otherwise out there, they agreed, they did a plug and play with some other stuff. And this looks good. So if we do that, what I'm saying now, if we play this out, that we're able to get it to the selectmen next week, a proposed RFQ that has been technically reviewed in either contemporaneously or previously by town council. If we get it to them by the 25th, at which point it would go out. So it goes out. If it was in final form and it voted on to be released, could theoretically go out the next day. It could go out Tuesday. It could theoretically go out like that. So, and then I guess we could base our timeline off telling, or not telling, but relaying to the selectmen, if you're able to pass this on 9/25, here is our projected timeline. If for any reason you have to go to 10/10, here is the subsequent timeline. And then that way we say, we would hope to all, for everything, that we can't go past 10/10, because then we're going to be really behind the 8 ball, but we just put forth two dates and just say, hey, this is what it is. So if it goes to the 9/25 and it is approved, and just say that's it. So then if it's presented on where it says schedule and timeline on page 1, we would, you have to really decide how long you want to leave it open for.
So the first thing, right now that said, they're available on August 16th. So we would say they're available on September
26th.
just as an example. And just going by this, it looked like there were, 3 weeks? So go out 3 weeks when proposals need to be submitted to us. So from the 26th, 3 weeks is October, middle of October, right?
17th.
Yeah.
You can bump it out. I mean, I would just, to give a little leeway off that, how fast they get out after, just go right out to like the 20th, October 20th.
And then it looked like in this anyway, there was 6 to 10 days for the interviews after that date. So whatever that October date was, you know, it's the next week or the week after to interview.
So. Etching these, like you said, bumped it out an extra week. So
4 days.
theirs was, so I was actually gonna argue, shorten it by 2 days and go to the 13th.
You get a holiday in there and everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, don't forget.
They already know.
Who?
The consultants that are gonna bid on this already know this is happening.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
sure they already know.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so do they need the full 3
Well, we
weeks?
already got a letter from one,
I know.
so.
I know what you're saying. I mean, and I guess to play devil's advocate to Mike Shampoo's point too, is attachments C, D, E, F. They have those on the ready. They probably have the scope of. They probably have this all ready.
Rob, what do you need next? A motion? Or?
No, we're just not yet. Just trying to iron out these dates.
Okay,
What we're gonna do is if we iron out the dates off the 25th, we're just gonna
Okay.
bump them out 2 weeks if it doesn't happen on the 25th.
So why don't you split the difference?
I'm not that aggressive on my
Paul's date, Mike's date, put it in the middle, and let's move on.
yeah,
Yeah, the 18th, which is a Wednesday, which
Yeah.
gives a couple of days of work time to maybe get some work done with assembling these documents.
Yeah, the 18th, that's fine.
I presume this document is gonna be sent out right away to, those folks who do this. There's no reason to not, invite people by sending them this, the Collins Center, or Stepchinsky and Mercier, or Bernie Lynch, or whatever those
Yeah.
different names they're using these days.
Mhm.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that others may not.
Oh, no, that's right, because you've got to advertise. What's your next date, Paul?
When-
You
when-
coming out?
When
roll.
when does MMA come out? The newsletter?
Oh, I'm not sure. They have they
What's
have
it-
something that's rolling all the
Okay,
time. yeah.
okay.
So the date the proposals are received is,
So the date they're proposed to see is the 18th. So then
October 18th.
October 18th.
So now
There's the next selectmen's meeting is the 23rd, and is that too?
yeah, because we have to, because then with these firms, they need to be interviewed, right?
Yeah, so it bumps out the interviews to the 13th.
Excuse me.
Right, and then, once the interviews,
You're gonna give them a week period for the interviews, right?
Yeah.
yeah,
Because I presume they're not gonna do it at a selectmen's meeting. I presume they'll have a special meeting for that.
So that's my question. I think with this process and just kind of where we are at this process, I think that some of our requests might have to be, or no, it's more of a planning perspective, right? To the select board is, we know you meet the second and fourth Monday, but we might need to call special meetings to accommodate stuff like this. So, and,
Well, that's what they must have done, because they've got a range,
Yeah.
12 through
Yeah.
16. you know.
I mean, it's funny, I deal with some towns and, the special, select board meetings are like, to a point, it's crazy that they're always having them. It's just like you get called in for all that stuff, and then some people just, they don't know, you gotta come here, but I think if we're in by the 18th, and say you gotta give 10, so like a week maybe, but they have a meeting on the 23rd, could we possibly ask for like a, like the,
So the schedule here is the week after
yeah,
deadline.
correct.
So why don't we just say the week of, maybe schedule the week of?
Yeah.
I mean, we're doing May, not shall, we're not filling up
Yeah.
someone's calendar for them,
So that would be, so if we, on the 18th, there's a select board already on the 23rd.
but I'm pretty certain, I'd have to go back and check, but I'm pretty sure when we interviewed firms to be town council, that was I think we had 2 special meetings. I think we had, I wanna say we had 5 firms and we spread it out over 2 days.
So you go, would you say from the,
23rd to the 27th.
I may have lost track of what we're doing, not timeline, but just
Just
process.
interviews with firms. The select board would be interviewing
The select board will be interviewing the search.
They- they made clear they want to make the decision on that, which is fine. This is their process.
Okay.
We're just advising them.
Okay.
But at that point, they would be, if they're having interviews on the week of the 23rd, they had a gap in here of about 2 weeks to awarding a contract, so give a little bit of time to digest before making a decision, which if that's what they want to do, I think would be November 13th.
Is that the first Monday?
yes,
Yeah.
that's his, second
Second Monday?
Yep.
Yeah.
And then to follow this kind of gets into December, which would be rough for, and I'm just assuming most people have busy Decembers, right? But
I thought we were gonna hold off on those last 3 Wasn't that the discussion, that we were gonna start?
As part of the scope of work, we can maybe put in, part of what we want them to do is to,
Right, to tell us what, to give us a sense of how long it's gonna take, so we really don't need to do those dates, do we? The last 3 dates?
So I am about as on the fence as one can be. With that, I can see the merit in holding off. I can also see the merit in just putting it there and having them say, having a consultant tell me, yeah, that's not going to work. But I don't know. I can be persuaded or reasoned with.
Could the document just simply read remaining schedule to be determined, or something to that effect? I
Yeah.
mean, it's obviously, it's an incomplete schedule by virtue of how we're proposing to write it, so, maybe it's not necessary to say, the rest of it is to be determined, but once the candidate is selected and hired, that we'll round out the rest of the calendar.
It's a good idea.
Yes, and we could also, and I'm thinking, I didn't think of this earlier.
Getting off the fence, are you?
Yeah, no, I'm not getting off the fence, but I'm thinking of why would you put those dates in there, and do we put those dates in there do you put dates like that in there so the person's responding to your contract know that they have the bandwidth during your projected or what your goal, your stated time frame? Hey, this is Wilmington wants. I mean, they're serious. They want this is how they want it done, and we might be doing A, B, C, or D on the other end. Do we have the bandwidth to do this?
But
Is that
the other thing you can do is, in the interviews, tell them what we would like to see for future dates, and see if they can accommodate it.
Except we're not gonna be doing the interviewing,
Yeah.
are we?
no?
We'll be there, though.
The select board would allow us to be present in the room and ask questions.
Yeah.
you know.
I would imagine one of the 5 of them is gonna be asking, when could you get us a new town manager? When could you get us a slate of candidates to
Right.
interview by?
Yeah.
I mean, we're kind of writing a question for somebody to cherry pick, but,
So let them ask, right?
yeah.
Yeah, let them ask.
Yeah.
And that would be good. I mean, if one firm says, well, we really are tied up and we wouldn't be able to get it until.
Who's gonna say that in
I know.
Who's gonna say that in an
I don't
interview?
think anybody does, but,
Hypothetical.
you know, folks seem to be worried. I don't think there's a bandwidth issue for this. I mean, it's
No.
not like we're dealing with a construction company or something, you know. I don't think there's a problem with this.
This isn't much of a priority for me.
I still don't even know why I'm here. Okay. Yeah. Then I'm fine with leaving the projected schedule up through contract being awarded, and then if there's the question comes back from our select board and they say, well, what happens after that? And I guess our response would be, we're hoping that you can have that question answered during the interview process, and it would be obviously the driving goal of both the select board, I would assume, and this committee to say, our town manager is leaving on October 31st. We need someone in here sooner rather than later once they're, vetted and if they're the right fit.
May I ask them for, in lieu of the last 3 lines, candidate interviews, finalist interviews, town manager job offer, in lieu of those specific sentences, can we simply say, I don't know, I'm just gonna wordsmith this here. Schedule for candidate interviews, finalist interviews, and job offer to be determined upon hiring of chosen.
Contract?
Of contract award, yeah, something to that effect.
Yeah.
Isn't that
Implied?
understood?
Yeah, I know.
I mean, why-
There's a lot in here that's
Why
understood.
are we adding
Legal.
words? I mean, but I don't, to me, it's understood.
I was on the fence about this too, but the more I think about the next page, we're serving this up to the select board to make a decision on this. And they may strike some of these bullet points, which would affect the last 3 lines. So if we say, we want you to do A through M, and they say, we're gonna strike a couple of those, that might abbreviate the time frame. They want someone on board. If like the Rob read from Sudbury's, which is to really be soliciting feedback from residents and employees, if the select board doesn't wanna do that, and then that's really up to us to do, that might, we have to get to work on that, but while we're waiting on the select board to make a decision on who's going to be the consultant, that might change the timeline a little bit. But as it is right now, if our goal is to give them something that they can say yes to, they might be trimming some of this down. So our timeline is based on the entirety of this, but I think it's actually the right decision to remove the last 3 lines of page 1, because I think that is far more fluid, I think, than
As part of the scope of work, then, do we wanna add in for them to develop a schedule for soliciting candidates and so forth, as part of their scope of work, which would kinda do without spelling out the 3 lines we're taking out, we want them to put that together for us. With the understanding that town manager's leaving October 31st, that we don't want this to go, drag on. We wanna-
Yeah, I mean, town manager's gonna be gone by the timeline we've set, so,
And then we add the Bedford language on the survey and let the select board strike it if they so choose.
Can we take a look at the second paragraph under schedule and timeline and determine what that should say? Because right now, Westford indicated that any questions would be addressed to their town manager. I'm assuming that our town manager won't be there. Do we want to have questions, suggest that questions be directed to the chair? And who will coordinate with the select board chair and respond as appropriate? I don't think that Jeff is gonna
Yeah, that's a good idea,
be
Mike.
there.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
You need to have somebody take.
I'm not opposed to it. It's fine with me.
I agree with you, but I would leave it to you to say whether or not you have the bandwidth to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna assume that, once drafted, these firms who are in this arena, they're not gonna have many questions. And if they had a question that I wasn't readily able to answer, I'm more than willing to ask the people who know the answers to those questions.
you wanna include both the chair and the vice chair, given that your availability might
Yeah,
become-
no, I think that's probably pretty fair. Who will, yeah, that's
I think
probably
your
true.
assumption is correct. I don't think you're gonna get
Yeah, I don't think
many
so.
inquiries. But we should have somebody down there.
Yeah, it's obviously, honestly, it's fine. I checked that email. Yeah, it's on my ticker now anyways. So if I get an email, that's fine. Just trying to think of a way, that if I, for any reason, didn't check it, it wouldn't get lost in the weeds.
With the vice chairs on it too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Actually, did you get your iPhone?
No, I can't even put another, Microsoft, thing on my iPhone.
Okay.
So I have to do web logins.
Okay.
John, are you okay having your
Yeah.
contact on there? Okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. And again, I just don't foresee many questions, and we'll have them submitted to the town manager's office anyway, so Beverly will come into you. Congratulations. So does anybody, relative to this, does anybody have anything else that they would like to see on a scope that either wasn't in what was presented from the, again, generally accepted RFP from Westford? With the addition, I'll add the stuff that we talked about from, that Sudbury had in theirs. And then I'll generally go off this too, and what I'll do is when I get the document formulated, I'll send it around to everybody. If you have any questions, concerns, if you think something was missed or needed to be edited, you can just don't respond to all, just send it to me.
So then we're gonna change or add to select board as well as this committee.
Yeah, so I put that in there.
Screening committee, right?
Yep,
Yeah.
screening committee.
Take out human resources
Yep.
department.
Yep.
So the two bullets you're adding are the community survey-ish language
Yep, and timeline.
and the timeline. Okay.
Page 9, we're gonna have to look at too if we're gonna use this document. I don't wanna jump too far ahead, but I don't wanna forget it. That has the term of the contract.
Yeah, so what my kind of, my really,
That's kind of strange, though, isn't it, those dates? Because they conflict with the dates in the front of the page,
Mm.
first page.
They do, yeah.
So I,
Well, there's an advantage, I think, to overcooking the anticipated offer date, because if
yeah,
if finalists withdraw, yeah, but if finalists withdraw, you still have that, this firm under contract,
They did a good job.
not left with nothing.
The dates, I think they moved it right along.
Yeah, 'cause it looks like if they want a town manager
Yeah.
in late December,
early
early
January, they go another 2 months with their contract.
on
Yeah.
or before
Yeah.
the 28th February, and maybe that takes into account
If people withdraw, finalists withdraw, you still have a consultant that has not just cashed the check and they're gone. You have someone to say,
That's true. Yeah.
what do we do with the box of broken toys that's left? Right?
I think we're gonna, I mean, if it goes out like this, the term of the contract, I think we're giving ourselves a time.
Well, then we don't put a date down, we just say it ends upon the start date of the new town manager,
Yeah.
whatever that date is.
Yeah, right. It starts when the contract is awarded. And then I like the last sentence we should need to keep in there. Last sentence.
Yeah, that's a that's a very important sentence.
Yeah.
Job, Paul.
Yeah, definitely the attachments, are they the ones, uses currently?
I haven't looked at it, but probably.
Yeah, we just wanna make sure that there's nothing that's different.
Well, I think what's gonna happen, Paul, is I think I'm gonna shoot this off, and I think KP's gonna say,
Okay.
let me pull up my old Word document bank and make sure Wilmington's coinciding with what they use Westford, looks like they also looked at Sudbury, and they're gonna kinda do that
Okay.
whole rigmarole. And then I assume whoever they assign to review the contract's also gonna say, by the way, you missed blah, 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 blah. You do this stuff all the time, and this is what you wanna make sure you get.
Yeah, there are a few places where the town of Westford is cited, page 13. And I think the most of the language is boilerplate.
Westford's all throughout there. So I think, I don't know if you're looking for a motion at some point, but I think if you're the one that's doing the redlining, that we should also trust that you're able to make minor changes to customize this to.
Yeah, so my kind of experience here is I think what we do is we provide, I can turn this document into an editable document, right? And I can take the pertinent points of this discussion and redline them and give that to, we can send it to contemporaneously to the select board and the town council and say, at our meeting, here is what we came up with for scope of work, and relative to that scope of work is some dates and what we would like to see our RFP, RFQ look like. Here you go, here's the pertinent edits we found, and can you turn this into our RFP? And they're gonna be able to say, yeah, that's, or let me pull up Town of Westford, migrate it over, because they have it in Word, and they're gonna swap out Westford, put in Wilmington, and then they're gonna take all our changes, migrate them in, and send it back and say, is this what you wanted? I assume.
Sounds like a plan.
Are we going to need another meeting to approve this?
No, I don't, no, I don't think so. I think that the motion that we would request from this committee is that the chair put forth to town council and the selectmen buy-in through its chair, the suggested scope of work and timeline as discussed, for the formulation of an RFP to be presented to the selectmen for a possible vote at their September 25th meeting.
Do you want a motion then?
I would love that motion.
I'd make that motion.
Motion's made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Make them repeat it.
Yeah.
Now, I'm gonna be the pain in the neck. If you get an edited document back from KP, certainly, if you wanna distribute off to the committee, that's
Oh,
okay.
I'm gonna
But we gotta be careful about that, right? That's violating, we start to violate open meeting law if all of a sudden we start shooting back at you as soon as, what, 4 of us go back to you with like, hey, there's an edit on page 5.
Yeah.
Now we're in a meeting.
Yeah.
So, there's an itchy line there that we gotta be careful of.
I don't really think we should probably be engaging in any sort of back and forth on editing unless and until we have another meeting, and it's during the course of that.
So that's just I throw that out to the committee. If you see something that's like, oh, shit, there's an edit, but maybe we shouldn't make,
Yeah, well.
I just swear, I think I just swore. It's okay.
Our
Yeah.
process.
With the beep, with the beep button.
Yeah, I think what's gonna happen is I think if there's an edit we're gonna catch, I'd be, KP's really good, they're probably gonna catch that edit too. And as far as, the only really thing that you might wanna call out are dates, and I pretty much have those locked down.
Hey, listen, I don't anticipate the need for anything I just said. I want to be cautious of it.
Is there a problem if we just reply simply to the chair?
Individually, yeah.
Yeah.
It's only a problem when more than 4 of us do, right? What, 9?
No, I think if you're engaging in the discussion, that's why when we get these emails,
Don't reply all.
they
That's
tell us,
right.
don't reply all.
Yeah.
So if all of us replied, are you suggesting we're now violating the law?
I think it's, if more than 4 of us
If-
reach out to Rob, it would have to be over the same issue. So a typo
Well, the
might
issue
jump
would-
off the page to all of us. Then Rob has engaged the forum of the board
You're right.
over something.
It's
that
it's
we-
phone calls, right? Just pretend it's not email, pretend it's phone calls. So Rob has a phone call with me and hangs up the phone. Then he has a phone call with John, and that happens 3 more times. Now we've just violated open meeting law. If it's related to this contract, to this RFQ. We couldn't do it as selectmen, we certainly can't do it as.
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying, that's just a way of skirting the open meeting law by saying that, hey, we can't get on the same phone call, but I can play telephone with all you folks.
You can't.
No, I know what I mean,
Well,
that's
yeah.
what I'm saying, that you can't not do that, that's what I'm saying.
Right.
What you're saying is the illustrative reason of why you cannot do that, because you are, you're essentially having a meeting,
Yeah.
but you're not having a meeting, but you are.
And I think it's a moot point, frankly. I brought it up because I don't want to be cavalier about open meeting law just because we're a subcommittee.
Do we want something that Mike said earlier, and if I'm way out of bounds, just tell me, but if you took this document and, find Westford, change it to Wilmington, and add in the things we talked about and stuff, so it's more of a draft final document that then gets sent to the select board and town council, so they're working off of our proposed RFP, and, you know, town council may have some, may have some edits and so forth, but at least we're starting from a kind of a draft final document versus a red line where everyone's gonna look at everything else, and then, you know, the law firm changing the word Westford to Wilmington and stuff. I'm just wondering if that makes sense. So, you know, you can say that we kind of looked at a few different RFPs, and we kind of took things from different ones, and here's our draft. I don't know.
Were you suggesting that we make the edits to the draft that Rob was suggesting we ask town council to make?
Yeah,
We
I'm just
kind of
thinking.
preliminarily
Yeah, I'm
jumped
just
ahead.
thinking time-wise, you know, that, I mean, we would say that we took this from Westford and Sudbury stuff, and here's a draft RFP, and let them go at it versus, because I just don't know what'll happen if it's a red line and everyone gets involved, and is that gonna, you know, add a week or 2 weeks to the process? I'm not sure. You guys would know better than me on this, but.
I agree with you.
I trust that the chairman is gonna, you know, do the right thing and do what it is that we're asking. And is there any reason why we can't all get the same document that goes to the Board of Selectmen?
No, I don't think, I think what Mike and John were saying is the issue would be if you guys all email me about, I mean, I guess the real answer.
No, I know.
I just wouldn't respond.
Yeah, we can all get it.
That's
You
not my
just want to
question.
get it, right?
Yeah, I'm saying I trust that you are going to take all of our collective ideas
Mm-hmm.
and put in a final document
Mm-hmm.
that will reflect what we discussed. What I'm suggesting is, will we all receive the same document
Yes.
that is going to the Board of Selectmen?
Yes.
All right. Given that, if we see some problems in that document, we can certainly bring it up at this open meeting of the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah.
In Mike, I can see clarification from town council too. I also think you could theoretically point that out as long as I don't re-engage. That's not a discussion. I sent it out.
I agree with you, but I'm
Yeah.
not gonna debate that issue, but I agree with
That's,
you.
Yeah.
yeah.
I think if I don't re-engage, but it's like it's a slippery slope. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know the answer to the question. I mean, I can ask town council.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'm gonna send it to him and say, hey, this is going out. Can the response to that email be if you have any edits, you can
What's
let
the
me know.
difference between that and an evaluation of a town manager or a superintendent of schools? All the members of the school committee and all the members of the Board of Selectmen send their evaluation in to a central point. I don't see the difference.
So, yeah, for the last, it was a week ago, I reached out to Beverly, because I had seen that the select board's agenda had a couple communications that dealt with what we were doing. Jeff had a memo, and there was Buzz's email.
Right.
And I just asked Beverly if she could send those to us when they were ready. So, not to volunteer you to do more work, because I know you're pretty busy, but could you just, well, forget you.
Well, those are listed also on the communication portion on the website, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. The
Yeah, all the
communications are up there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So I think I got it. So.
Rob, I don't too hard, you're not gonna have anything, so.
No. Never.
Find and replace. It's easy.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be fine. Well, I'm sure if any of you are catching it when it goes out to town council, I would hope if it was some sort of typo or I missed a Westford or something, that town council's gonna have to catch it. And I'd also be shocked if they didn't just take it and run it through their Word program to find out what we changed in their document. Or I mean, the alternative is. It's fine. That's fine. I like it better this way. That way we are throwing it out into the universe, and we are in charge of our own destiny at that point. And we're saying, hey, here it is. Do with it as we hope you will, and we hope you get it to the selectmen, and you want it there so they can close it out on the 25th. All right. I just go over to the communications. It was the email from Beverly Dalton relative to salary survey and draft postings for the town manager position. Any questions? There was a letter from George Allen to the town manager screening committee dated September 7th, 2023. Questions? There was a letter from myself to the select board dated September 8th, 2023. There was an email from Buzz Tipchewski to Beverly, Jeff Hull, and Gary DePalma dated August 23rd, 2023. The only thing I want to talk about is I just want to confirm that it would be requested that Jeff and/or Mr. DePalma, who is here this evening, that somebody just respond back that we are now moving forward with or hopefully procuring the services of a consultant, and we appreciate his offer, and then we might see him again on the other end of that. And then there was a letter from Dan Murphy to the town manager screening committee dated August 29th, 2023. Point 6 that was discussed. Any further discussion on that? No. Next meeting date. So it was. So the next meeting date, and also John O'Neill asked if we're going to pick a next meeting date, that we pick the next 2 meeting dates to give WCTV a kind of heads up as to what our schedule looks like. So the issue here is going to be that the Board of Selectmen meeting is on the 25th. They're either going to vote on what we're hoping would be an RFP that's presented to them, or they're going to push that off until their next meeting, or maybe a special call meeting after that. So I'm kind of up in the air as to when the next meeting of this board should be scheduled for. And do you want to schedule a placeholder for the 28th, which will be 2 weeks from today? That way we can digest whatever happened at that select board meeting. That sound fair?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay.
Just a question, do we need a meeting
So I think that
at that point? Shouldn't we meet after the selectmen?
Excuse me.
To me, the next time we should meet is if we're gonna join the selectmen for the interview process with the,
my only reason that we should maybe put the 28th as a placeholder is if there's any discussion at the select board meeting that we would have to discuss after that. If they brought anything up, or if there was something they talked about that we would need to discuss. And then if they issue it, then we could probably reconvene or rethink even meeting that day.
what is the 20th?
It's a Thursday. Yeah. So I would propose, unless anyone's, that will schedule it for the 28th, but that will kind of be tentative to what happens at the meeting on the 25th.
What second meeting do you want, Rob?
So I know that WCTV wants to ensure that they have people to film. That's why they kind of want it out. But now that I'm saying that, I kind of think our schedule we just laid out there is pretty liquid. So I don't. I mean, we could guess, but I don't think guessing's going to do anything. So I think I'm going to walk that back, and I know that they would like that to happen, but we'll give them as much notice as we can. But right now, I don't see the merit in kind of putting a second meeting on there. Yeah, 2 weeks? Okay, perfect. And then, obviously, if it changes too, we'll probably give them ample notices as well. And then, topics for next meeting. Again, it's going to be depending on what we see happens with this RFP that goes out.
Can we ask the secretary to let Mr. Hannigan and Mr. Perry know that we've scheduled another meeting?
Yep.
Probably as soon as possible.
Yeah, and I can send out an email too tomorrow for that too. All right. Anything else?
Motion adjourned.
Motion made.
Second?
Motion made. Second. All those in favor?
All right.
Aye.